Hello, everyone, and welcome to our second session of the day. We have a great lineup for you. This is Turn Digi, the online marketing conference that promotes entrepreneurs, supports rising talent, and we have a diverse range of speakers. So today we actually have speakers dialing in from 5 different countries, from 3 different continents. And in today's sessions, we actually have people dialing in from 3 countries. So very international indeed. Today we have Azeem and Andrew and Claire, and this is a really great topics. They're talking about PPC, making local landing pages, and really how to win in Google My Business with UTM tagging. So this is the local session for all of you. So I'm going to pass over to Azeem, who's going to introduce himself and his slides. But while I do that, I'll just remove my slides so he can add his. And I also wanted to say, drop your questions in the chat if you have any, and like the video if you are enjoying it. Well, it's not if you're enjoying it, it's because you are enjoying it. So I'm going to pass over to Azeem's slide. It's going to take in present mode. And also a big thank you, I just wanted to say to Claire, Azeem, and Andrew for joining us today. I know it's a lot of work to do presentations. And also very big thank you to our guests for joining. So Abdul, Azeem's in here, Anna, Simon, David, Sarah, and Andy, and everyone else that's not signed in. Without further ado, I'm going to now pass over to Azeem. Thank you very much.
Hello, awesome. Just going to check you can hear me and see me. Perfecto. It's raining super hard here, by the way, so if you can hear that, apologies. But yeah, thank you very much for having me, and we are going to talk about local PPC, and if you've got a little budget or a small budget, how you can still get success and how you can still win. So as Joe's rightly mentioned, this is the excuse me, this is the local session. So hopefully you guys will get a lot of value from this. Quick apologies. I am good at talking about this stuff, but I'm terrible at DIY. There's a massive hole behind my head, which you can probably see. I tried to put up a picture and failed miserably, and I'm trying to hide that by moving my head, but it's it's not going to happen. So we're just going to deal with it. Anyway, let's crack on. This is me. I'm a digital marketing manager. I've been around for a while. Didn't have hair when I started. Still don't now. Awards judge, conference speaker. But let's talk about why we're here. Small budget, big problem. Tips to succeed in local PPC. So, a couple of things. This is a common misconception of PPC. This is me as a client. Common misconception. Need to have a lot of budget, a lot of money, and I don't have that to play in the local space. Well, I'm going to give you a few reasons why you should, a few facts, and then some really useful tips that you can achieve, get some quick wins, and also start to question in your account. So if you're a business owner, a small business owner, and you've got somebody running your accounts, or equally if you want to set up your own account, these are things that you'll be able to do to get some really, really quick wins and big wins as well. So why you should use local PPC, a few facts. Nearly everybody uses the internet to search for local businesses. That's a given, right? Secondly, 65% of people click on ads when they're making purchases. And I'm here with 2 SEOers. So yes, people do click on ads. People who click on PPC ads are 50% more likely to purchase versus those that came to the website via the organic results. I wish I'd have worn my PPC t-shirt now. Nearly all mobile customers call their business directly through Google Ads. Really useful to have your phone number and your call tracking set up on that. And then again, pretty much everyone who's got a phone use it for shopping. Givens. These are facts that you can take to your clients. Most importantly, these near me searches are super, super important. Really good wins for PPC. So you should definitely have those in your account. These are common pushbacks that you might get. So you might get things like, oh, I've got people coming to the website from another country. PPC sounds super expensive and a waste of money, or I don't have a big enough budget for PPC. All things that Andrew has definitely said within the last 20 minutes. So let me show you how you can quickly get some wins from this. Right. A really good person said, if you don't have a good account structure, you definitely got to waste money. The person who said that was me. Super important. this is why you should have a really good account structure. It's a pretend shop called Merit's Charity Shop. And in this shop, we're going to set up a sort of fake Google account. Now, you want to split out your campaigns and your ad groups by theme. So in the very first session, really useful tips and advice about how you can take advanced PPC to the next level with campaigns, themes, RSAs, and everything else. I'm not going to talk about that. But if you want to take your PPC to the next level, check back in the video from the first session. Super, super useful. The basics in this charity shop. We sell men's jackets, men's jeans, women's jackets, X, Y, and Z. Split those all out into themes. In your ad group, then split them down by things like colours, men's black jackets, men's brown jackets. And then you split out your keywords in exactly the same way. So somebody who searches for a men's black jacket in your local area will get their ad triggered out of the men's black jackets ad group. That's super useful because if you write your ads tailored for that ad group, the only ads that should be in that ad group should all be around black jackets. The more relevant the ad copy you serve to that user, the more likely you're going to get to draw the click from them. Equally, you can do this with all sorts of businesses. So, for example, I've done it for small local family lawyers or lawyers, I should say, and you split out the campaigns into like family law, employment law, divorce lawyers, X, Y, and Z. Split it out that way. Super, super useful. So, a really good account structure is going to set you on the path to success, and you can do it for various different businesses. One thing that I would recommend to anybody or everybody, regardless of your budget, is to use Google Ads Editor. It is such a safety net. So essentially, it's a local program you download onto your computer, and you can make changes inside of there to your account and check that Google is going to be happy with them before you actually submit it to Google. So you can essentially play with your account, break it if you need to, or test things before you submit it to Google. Never build a campaign directly in Google's interface. I would always do it locally. Excuse me. It takes a little bit more time. But if you build it locally, you can push it straight into Google's ads editor and press check, and it will check absolutely everything and give you a sort of traffic light system. Green, perfect, red, we're not going to accept this. And it won't let you publish it until you've fixed it. So handy, because if you're building an account for a local business or a small business, you'll be able to see where you've made a mistake, where you've gone wrong, and quickly fix it. If you do that directly in Google Ads and accidentally set things live, you're starting to waste money immediately there. And then the SEOs will be like, well, you should have gone organic. Anyway, these are 5 areas that you definitely need to question. So your first one should be all about your build. And as we've mentioned, excuse me, you should split your campaigns and your ad groups into themes. Definitely split your branded campaigns separate from all of your sort of generic stuff. So keep your brand name separate. That is your bread and butter. And I've discussed this at length before, but if you think, should I bid on my own brand term or should you not? The answer, if you ask me, is absolutely yes. You should always bid on your brand term. It's super cheap, it acts as a defense mechanism, and it increases the trust in the SERP, because a good local marketer will have that brand SERP covered from both PPC and an organic point of view as well. In terms of your build, other things to look at and question are things around labeling and targeting. So if you wanted to pull out the data and do a bit of analysis yourself, can you split that data out easily? Are the campaigns named in such a simple way that I could give this account to somebody else and say, right, can you pull out this, this, and this? If it's too complicated for yourself, then it's definitely going to be complicated for your clients. And equally, if you are a local business doing this yourself, just really make it easy for yourself. Separate your geo-targeting. And is your structure the same across search engines? Are you doing the same for Google and Bing? And if you're doing it differently for one search engine to the other, why? Consider those questions. So that's your build. After you build, you should be looking at your keywords. So things that you should be considering when you're looking at your keywords are things like, have I got my keywords covered? Have I covered my entire keyword universe? Do you have things like basic exclusion lists? So Google's really good at spending your money if you let it. So you should have things covered as a bare basic. So there are industry standard exclusion lists for things like sexually explicit searches, drugs, things like that, where you don't want your brand to be associated with. So those are your negatives. Could your negatives be blocking your appropriate traffic? So a good campaign structure would split out match types separately. You'd keep your broader matches as effectively your digital fishing net. We're not psychic. depending on whether we are PPC SEOs. Regardless, we don't know what our users are going to put into the search bar. Your broad matches will let you see what users will search. Farm that data through search query reports or SQRs, get those into your exact matches. Traffic becomes much cheaper. Block it out from your broad, restart that process all over again. Also be looking at things at your keywords like your quality scores. What's the average quality score for your branded keywords? That should be high. What's it for your generic keywords? And if you're targeting your competitor traffic, what's the quality score like for that? It's going to be low because you're giving the user traffic that they probably don't want, a page that they don't want, I should say. So how could that be improved? If you're really trying to steal your competitors' traffic, how could you improve your experience? And then look at things like percentages. So how many of your keywords have had no impressions in the last 4, 8, 12 weeks? And how much of your generic spend, so not spend on your brand term, but how much of your generic spend is going on exact match keywords, because that should be high. After that, you should be looking at your writing, your copywriting in your ads. Again, this is what's going to entice the click. So as a bare minimum, you should have at least 4 ads in each ad group as a bare minimum. What type of ads are you going to be using? So as mentioned in the previous session, you've got RSAs, responsive search ads. That's something to test further down the line. As a bare minimum, you should have the basic expanded text ads. Get your brand name in there immediately. And then look at the things that you would imagine in the basics. So spelling and accuracy. Are there any misspellings? Are your prices, promotions, everything else up to date? Is your display URL in line with what you're putting in your ad group? So in the example I gave you before with Merit's charity shop, if I'm looking at a ad that's from the men's black jacket ad group, if that display URL says men's blue jackets, that's going to confuse the user, right? And they're probably not going to click it. It's proven that the right display URL and the right path will take people to the right page. Separately, extensions. These are part of the areas that I look at when I'm questioning an account. So what level are your extensions set at? You can have them at various different levels in the account, but the lower you go and the more granular you get, the better it will be. Are your location extensions set up correctly? Do you have click to call as a bare minimum? Do you have site links set up? All of these things are really going to draw that click, boost your CTR, and then helps you look at things like your landing pages. When you're looking at your landing pages, you should be looking at things like, what's the experience like? Is it fast? Is it relevant? Am I giving the right call to action and during the click? Do I want the person to make that action in the first half of the page above the fold? What else can I say about landing pages? Just make it quick and make it relevant. The very obvious example would be, if I've clicked on a black jacket ad and it's taken me to a page of blue jackets, I'm gonna leave that page. Simple as that. Strategy. This is super important. You don't need to be clever to look at this because Google Handley has got loads of different bidding strategies built in. If you're not comfortable with that, you can bid yourself and manage the keyword yourself, and then you've got full control over it. But equally, if you haven't got as much time to spend in the account, you should be looking at things like bidding strategies. So do you want to achieve a certain amount of conversions for your budget, or do you want to control the cost while trying to get as many conversions as you can? Google will let you do that. And as a bare minimum, you should be looking at setting up things like RLSA, remarketing lists for search ads. Not everybody's going to convert and buy on the first visit to your website. So it's important to make sure that you've got those people in an audience list. A really good example of this is I had a client before who were promoting their stop smoking services locally. Entice people to the web page with a generic search in terms of how do I stop smoking. They came to the website. What we wanted them to do was download a free ebook to learn more about stopping smoking and getting them into the local clinic to book an appointment. People didn't do that, so we retargeted them with a different ad, and it had a very strong message saying 90% of people who came to us successfully quit smoking for over 3 months. For over 3 months. Super useful. That ad outperformed all of the generic ads. Things like that are super useful. Downside is you are paying for the same customer twice, but then you can look at things like, well, what is the customer actually worth to me? If it's below what you're paying, you are absolutely on for a win. Couple of quick tips and then I'll shut up because there are some really interesting people with me who have got super great tips. Google Ads Editor, there's a problem here. By default, it might show you something like this. And one of the questions that you get at the start was, I'm getting people from all over the country. That setting right there, don't use it, because you might have people, let's say somewhere else in the country, typing in, let's say, stop smoking, and depending on their search history, you might get triggered an ad for someone who's so far away that they're not going to come to your website, or they're not going to come to your local business. You've wasted money on them. So just change that to people who are actually in your targeted locations. Guaranteed, it's one of the first things that I look at if I'm auditing or questioning an account. By default, this will be set on. Secondly, there's another problem here as well. When you've got a low budget, turn that off. You shouldn't be having display network enabled for text ads. Many people have seen it when you've been browsing yourself. It's just a horrible text ad showing on the display network. Very poor CTR. Some argue that it raises brand awareness, but equally it's so out of place in terms of a display ad. It drives the wrong sort of awareness. You look at it and think, well, what is that? 2 different bidding types, which I can give you for free. So as I've mentioned, if you're a small business owner, you've got a small budget and you want as many conversions as you can get, TCPA, which is just short for target cost per acquisition, that's the type of bidding that you want. Let Google run that minimum of a certain amount of days to run. Don't touch your account. Google will tell you that it's still in the learning phase. Once it's learned how your audience behaves and how they convert, you're on the way. Equally, if you want more conversions but want to keep control of your click cost, then look at eCPC, which is enhanced CPC. There's not enough time for me to tell you about that, but there are so many signals that come into play when you look at enhanced CPC that it is really, really useful for you to consider if you want to retain control of your click cost. That's all I'll say from that. I'm building a free sort of questioning sheet, which I'm going to put out very, very soon. It's essentially the equivalent of a free PPC audit, because I think anybody should have access to this, and not just people who've got big budgets and big money to spend with agencies. Small business owners and local businesses definitely deserve to play on Google, and I'm going to help you do that. So keep an eye out on that. I'll be sharing it across my Twitter, and that is it from me. Hopefully there are questions, but if not, I will pass you over to 2 super experts.
That was great. So many tips. Yeah, I really do look forward to that. I guess it's a mini audit you were saying. When will that be available, Azeem?
When my hair grows back. No, I'm joking. I'm pretty much almost done. I've got 2 seconds left to finish, and then I'm almost done. So keep an eye out on my Twitter feed, and I'll be sharing that soon.
Great. Okay, well, we've got some questions actually. So Maret asks, would you recommend keeping your landing pages short, so above the fold only, to really push your visitors to action?
I don't want to use the words, but yeah, it depends. Depends on your clients. If you're a very, very small business and you don't have a lot of content, or your website is not content rich, definitely keep that call to action above the fold. Don't make users scroll for it.
Yeah.
Equally, instead of short, what I'd look at first is fast. So I've got no problem with a web page that's mega long, as long as it's relevant and loads quickly. I've done separate talks where I've talked about how you can measure like scroll depth and this, that, and the other. But in terms of the length of the page, I'd look at that first, and then I would look at page speed as well. Super important.
Oh, great. Okay, so yes, actually, Andrew had a similar one as well. Do you recommend making separate pages for each PPC campaign, or can you steer people to a good pre-existing landing page?
I think that there's definitely merit in doing both. You can look at existing landing pages. The benefit of existing landing pages is you've already got that data in your account, right? So you can look at how that performs. Start sending paid traffic to it and look at the difference between how your paid traffic performs versus your organic. If you've got the budget to run other activity like social media and X, Y, and Z, look at how your traffic performs across channels. If it's not performing as you want it to, or if you're finding that users are bouncing super quick, build a new page, look at what people have engaged with on the old page, add those elements in. It's a decent way to do an A/B test if you haven't got the time, skills, budget, or availability to look at things like Google Optimize or A/B testing. Try that, see if it works. And if it does, then say, I sent you.
Great. Well, we will definitely do that. And I think we're all waiting with bated breath or garlic breath for your spreadsheet. So thanks very much, Azeem, for those tips. Will you be sharing them on SlideShare or on
Yes,
Twitter?
I will share them very shortly. A lot of it is
Perfect.
just images, so the benefit is coming to the YouTube video because people
Exactly, it is. But I mean, we've got quite a few people live watching, but only 3 likes. So, you know, if you are enjoying the video, do click the little like button. That like,
yes,
and
absolutely.
subscribe to Turn Digi. You know, it is a free event, all about supporting entrepreneurs, promoting also first-time speakers, and also it's creating a diverse speaker lineup. So thank you very much. I'm going to pass over to Andrew, who can be sharing his screen to talk about creating these great local landing pages.
Yeah, hi everyone. I'm going to do the classic. Can you see my screen? Somebody yell at me when you can.
Yes, we can.
Yeah, great, because I'm on a super budget setup. My work from home thing's not quite as fancy as Azeem and Claire's. I've only got one screen, so now Azeem's probably pulling funny faces at me and I can't see him. So I'm Andrew. This is the little intro slide that the Turnbull sisters asked me to do. So who I am, I've worked in digital for about 20 years. I run an SEO event in Cambridge, some of you might have heard of, called Optimisey, hopefully. If you haven't, go look it up. An interesting fact about me, I used to work on a farm and my next door neighbour was literally a horse. So, and I love an underdog. So, and I also love bad puns, but that was kind of obvious from the neighbour. Terrible joke there. And I love an underdog. That photo is me looking really excited. I was supporting my hometown football team, Colchester, who are honestly rubbish. But we got to play Man United in a big cup game earlier this year. That was very exciting for me. You can see on my face how excited I am about that. So I'm going to talk to you about local landing pages that users will love, and hopefully Google too, if you end up doing this right. Because local landing pages have this kind of like crappy reputation. So when you think about stuff in local, people think, oh yeah, you're just spamming all these kind of things in, which we'll come to make some examples of where this kind of stuff gets a bit rubbish and awful. So I'm hopefully going to try and steer you away from that and steer towards some of the good stuff. Some assumptions before we start. I'm going to assume that your site already works well on mobile. Azeem kind of touched on this earlier, but like, you know, every year for the last like decade, it seems has been the year of the mobile. But it really is like a whole boatload of search is done, particularly when people are doing those kind of near me and those local searches where they're specifying stuff. They're quite often on the move, they're on a mobile device. So if your website doesn't work very well on mobile, I'd suggest you've probably got some bigger fish to fry than doing all this kind of stuff I'm going to talk about. So do that stuff first, then maybe come back and watch the video of this and go for that. Because I'm going to tell you a little bit of a story, and every story needs a hero, right? So there's going to be some heroes, there's going to be some anti-heroes in this. I'm going to let you decide which is which. To protect some of the not so innocent, I've done this on a few little things and kind of redacted some crucial information, just maybe so I don't get sued and so we don't have all those kind of issues. Because you get this kind of stuff where, you know, with local search that, say, you get these kind of spammy things. And the issue with that is that, you know, lots of stuff like in SEO. So everybody knows in SEO links are important, right? So you need some good links. But then you get spammers who go out and they just buy shed loads of links and they do all this black hat PBN stuff kind of, and that, you know, that doesn't mean that links are bad. It just means that some people do links badly. So we can talk about local landing pages. There's some awful examples out there, some really crappy local landing pages and how not to do it. But that doesn't mean that doing it properly is bad. You can do this stuff properly and it's okay. So here is our first example. We're going to talk about Capital Locksmiths. I've changed their name to protect the not so innocent. They're based in London and they have 664 of these location pages where they're basically kind of covering different areas of London. The, you know, emergency locksmith in Clapham, emergency locksmith in Tottenham, emergency locksmith in Ealing, and all this kind of stuff. So you've got all these terrible kind of things. How did I find all 664 of these? Did I do some kind of special SEO secret wizardry and stuff? No, they've got it all in their sitemap. There's all customer facing. You can find this stuff really easily. I've put 2 examples over there on the left. They're super zoomed out, but you can just see that they're pretty much rinse repeat pages. So they're not good. So this is not a good example. The thing is, some of this stuff kind of works. So you look at their kind of site and you're thinking, oh, well, you know, this site ranks in the top 10 for 140 odd queries. They rank top 3 for 32 queries, and they rank number 1 for 11. So it makes me think like, you know, wow, are the spammers winning at this kind of stuff? Or is there like, you know, are they doing okay with this? Is there something to learn? So that's what I'm trying to think is, so, you know, spammers spam links, doesn't mean links are bad. You can still learn some stuff like, you know, how close are they getting? Are they going in the right direction? And what can you learn from them to do it better? Because if you think about this kind of stuff, so they've done 664 of these pages, even if you kind of get some lousy content editor that, you know, kind of mass produces these things on Fiverr or whatever, I've calculated they've spent about sort of $40,000-$50,000 on these crappy content pages. And of all these kind of things that they're ranking for, actually, like, it's the same pages appear multiple times. So actually, huge amount of this, I think. So there's 14% of their 664 pages actually rank for anything good. So they've got a 86% miss rate, which is awful. So they're just spending money, which is just, and they're also running huge risks, because all these crappy doorway pages, you're potentially going to get hit by Google for doing this kind of stuff. It's not good. So wasted money, wasted time. So all those kind of rankings, any good SEO worth their salt will tell you this kind of stuff. So rankings are lovely, but they're just for show. It's conversions that are the things you're looking for, which is kind of what Azeem was talking about as well, and like how Claire's going to, I know she's going to kind of go on to how to cover this kind of stuff and how to track it properly. Because you can rank for #1 for something that nobody searches for, and it's worthless, right? You don't get any clicks from that because nobody searches for it. Or you can rank #1 and your site's awful and ugly and slow, and people just bounce off again. You're still not getting any business out of that. So rankings are all well and good, but you need to convert them into sales and leads. So how do we do that kind of stuff? So here's some quick don'ts. Don't do that churn and burn stuff. Don't do those rinse repeats and stuff where you just get exactly the same page with just the name of the city just subbed in and out. Don't do that. Don't use fake addresses, all that kind of stuff. Try and make it look like you appear in more places than you actually are. Just don't do that kind of stuff. So some positive stuff about what you can do. So have the town or the city name in the page title. So when you're writing about that thing that you sell in Northampton or Cambridge or wherever it is, Leeds, it's important. Like, Google isn't a mind reader. You have to say, if you're, selling shoes in Leeds, you need to mention shoes and Leeds in your page titles, and reinforce that stuff through your H1s and the H2s, all those kind of things. And then the last little hint I've got on there is about optimizing the meta description for the click, which actually, again, that sort of echoes really well what Azeem was saying. Meta descriptions aren't a ranking factor. That it doesn't actually affect your rankings, but it is an optimization factor. So when that little thing appears, we'll come to some examples in a minute, the sole job of that bit of text is to entice people to click. Like, they're looking for this thing and you need to convince them, I've got it, come and get it. So here's the example from our terrible locksmiths. How well do they do with this kind of stuff? And actually, they're all right on this. So the things we've got to cover the area, the product and service that we do it, and then with any leftover space, we're going to try and convince you. So this is an example of one of their pages. 24-hour locksmith in Clapham, super fast service, best prices, and the meta description is about how qualified they are. That gets you in 20 minutes. It's great. If you've locked yourself out of your flat in Clapham at 3 in the morning, and this pops up in your search, it's looking all right. So you can learn kind of stuff from these, terrible spammy people. They actually do some of this stuff all right. So here's some other stuff that they should be doing. So consistent NAP. So this NAP stuff that you'll see lots of people in local SEO banging on about all the time. It's name, address, phone number. So they're not actually going to go to sleep. It's just those kind of things, name, address, phone number, and having it consistent. So if you had you changed your phone number a little while ago, you changed location, make sure that all your listings and stuff repeat that correct information and get it corrected. You also have internal linking to your pages. If you're talking about Clapham, this particular things, or shoes you sell in Leeds, when you talk about shoes and Leeds and all those other things on other pages, link back to your location page. And get some local links. We'll come on some more ideas about local links and things as well. But if you are working in that particular area, like Leeds, I keep falling back to for some reason, get links from businesses in Leeds, schools, churches, WI groups, whatever it is, and link them to your local landing page. Not your homepage. Your homepage doesn't need any more links. If you've got some good links to your site, you've probably already got a boatload of links to your homepage. Get them to your specific local landing pages, and then make your landing pages unique and interesting and useful. Okay, so how does our locksmiths do with this kind of stuff? Here we go. This is the kind of rinse, repeat, spammy content you're going to get. So they clearly spun this out on a brief to someone. They've got the word locksmith mentioned 7 times on this page. Great, that's fulfilled the brief, but it just doesn't make sense. So you get typos in there, the big red arrows pointing to the nice typo they got in there. They've got stuff at the end with like, get in touch with name of locksmiths, Hillingdon, to find a locksmith near you today. It just doesn't make sense. So if you finally click through to this page, this lousy content is going to convince you that they're junk, not actually useful. So don't do this kind of stuff. They're close, because on this page they've also got some like reviews. So that's a good thing. It's a good trust signal, right? So those are the kind of things you want, and you want to do this. But don't do what they've done, because they've just made these up. So like PS, I was surprised by the great service. Not as surprised as I was, Pete, because you don't exist. If you go through to this company's Facebook page, Pete hasn't reviewed them. This is just them writing some copy that they would like people to say about them and sticking Facebook's logo next to it. Don't do that. But trust signals are important, so get some of those on there if you can. This leads me to a good quote from Miriam Ellis. If you've not come across Miriam before, look her up afterwards. She's great, knows loads of stuff about local SEO, but I'll let you read that for yourself. Basically, unless you've got a really good reason to make a local landing page, and because I want to rank is not a good reason, then don't bother doing the local landing page. You need to have a good reason to actually have it. Do you offer something locally in that area that's worth having? Okay, some good examples, how to do this well. The NHS, a subject close to all our hearts at the moment. And this is an example of like how this page is ugly as hell, right? but it's useful. It does the job. So you're looking for a doctor to sign up. You just moved to Clapham. You need to sign up to your local GP. And this is the kind of stuff that you find. Clapham Park Group Practice, got the phone number promptly, got the address, there's a link to the website. It's got useful information on there. When do they open? What nights are they open late? Are they open on Saturdays? Do they have an out of hours service? There's all this kind of useful information all on this one page. And they've gone to the next stage as well. They're thinking about their users. So if you're going to go and see the doctor about some slightly personal medical issues, you might want to know whether the doctor's a male or female. Is there a female doctor that I can go and see? Is there a male GP that I can go and talk to about this particular thing? They've got that information right there too. So the point is, say, you can hopefully make more pretty pages than this, but think about functionality and usefulness and making it engaging and unique and interesting for your users. What are the stuff that they're looking for? When they're looking for that thing you sell in that place that you sell it in, what information do they want to know? If all that's a bit 101 for you, then the next stage you can kind of go with this kind of stuff is Schema. So if you haven't come across Schema before, look it up, schema.org, great website. There is a schema for everything. So there's even a schema for public toilets and whether they're enclosed in different spaces and when they're open, all those kind of things. But there's definitely a local schema for local businesses. So you can find schema for local businesses and you can add stuff in there about the areas that you serve. You can even draw geo-location things, so using longitude and latitude. So that's the way to kind of say, well, these are the services and areas that we offer in this kind of particular area. So look into schema stuff. It's really useful and really good. And if all of that kind of stuff you're thinking just sounds a bit hard, Andrew, I sell shoes in 3 different places in the same city. How many different unique and interesting ways are there for me to talk about selling shoes? And when I talk to my clients, I get that kind of stuff too. They say that quite a lot. And this is the kind of stuff that we talk about. You've got unique stuff there. You've got the staff in your location. What's their experience? What are their specialities? What kind of things do they know about that are really useful to go and see? What events do your people get involved with? Are they fundraising? Are they involved in a local bake sale? Do they run in local marathons? Community involvement? All that kind of stuff. So those are the kind of things that you can find. So I'm in Cambridge. Are you involved in the Cambridge Beer Festival, the Folk Festival? Make it relevant to your business. If you're a shoe seller and you go to the Folk Festival, maybe that's not so useful, but if you're involved in local marathons, shoes, running, marathons, that's the kind of stuff that's useful. So what's the kind of stuff you could offer and that's you can useful in your area? And if you don't know that stuff, there are people in your business that do. They're probably working in your shops. They're definitely answering your phones. They're on your customer service desk, all that kind of stuff. Talk to them. They know all this stuff. They know your customers. They know the questions that come up. They know the stuff that they want to do. And they also know what they do in their local community. So they'll be able to tell you. They live there probably, and they'll be able to tell you about it. Some more don'ts. I'm coming to the end, but some things that you don't want to do, which I often see. So people go I'll become a local listings page. I'll put all the local events on my site and I'll list them because that would be useful. Don't do that. There's hundreds of these already out there. Nobody wants your list of local events when there's better ones on the local newspaper and all that kind of stuff. Make it useful and relevant. So that kind of thing about, shoe sellers and local walking routes or hikes or, marathons, all that kind of stuff. Tim Capper, who does a lot of great stuff on local SEO, also talked about this. So he had an example of a taxi firm pulling in an API from the train station nearby to say when the local train signs were coming in. That's useful. Because you're going to get a taxi, you want to catch that train, or you want to pick someone up from that train. It's useful. So don't just become a listings page, and don't make them just to rank. If you're not proud of your landing pages after you've built them, then maybe you shouldn't have built them in the first place. Quick examples again. So REI is a American firm. If you're not familiar with them, they're kind of like Blacks or go outdoors kind of shop thing crossed with Halfords. They do all kind of outdoorsy, snowboarding-y kind of stuff. But they do this in the commercial space and they do it really well. So they rank for a whole bunch of stuff, which I've kind of put there. But so you can do this commercially. It doesn't have to be just all right, I'm going to do this on a small scale for my local business. If you're a big commercial business, you can make this work for you too. All right, in summary, lousy local landing pages, sorry. They are spammy, spun, and junk. They are irrelevant and they try and overreach. Avoid those things. You want to make lovely local landing pages. Make them only where there's a real need to. Treat them like a landing page. If somebody, the first interaction they've ever had with your business and they land on this page, this is the first time they've ever heard of you, does that page work, explaining who you are, why they should choose you, and make your pages unique and useful. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Andrew. So many great tips. We have some questions already for some people, so from some of our audience, I should say. So let's go to the audience. So sorry, going back, and lots of comments and questions. Fritz love the underdog. Yogi. What would make SEOs? What would SEOs make the worst farmers? Let's have a look. Okay.
To be clear, I wasn't farming. I was doing a digital role. I just happened to be based on a farm. I wouldn't know the right end of the cow if it bit me.
Let's
Actually, if it
say
bit me, I would, but
you're going to steal some of these PPC, these useful learnings, Azeem. Okay. Simon, where to focus first, local landing pages or GMB locations?
good question. I know Claire's going to talk about GMB and getting it set up and tracking it so you know that it's working. If you haven't got GMB set up already, definitely do that first. So the number of times, a good way to test for this is when you search for that thing you sell in that place that you sell it in, almost always Google will put what we call a map pack. So like the 3 results that it pulls from Google Maps into the top of the search results. So even if you rank number 1, you're ranking below the map pack. So the map pack is powered by Google My Business. If you're not appearing in those top 3 results, that's a really important thing to focus on.
So if you're not appearing for that means you haven't done your GMB listing. You
haven't done your GMB very well.
Or set up.
You could be ranking, you could be outside the top 3, so you could be 4th or 5th or 6th. There's GMB run, so the local search stuff that runs on a separate algorithm from the organic results. There's some different things that it thinks are important. So proximity is really important. So if somebody is searching in the middle of Cambridge and you happen to be based in Carlisle, but you'd like to rank in Cambridge, I'm afraid that's tough luck. You're not going to rank in the maps pack just because you want to. You actually have to generally be based pretty close to, because like GMB, the whole point of that is to help people find stuff that's near them. So even if you're an amazing coffee shop and you're in Newcastle, you're not going to rank very well in London, not in maps anyway.
Yeah. Okay, great. Thank you. And just a couple of the questions. So basically, I think we have, okay, I have one question, but I'll leave that to afterwards. You talked about, so Fatou was saying, referring back to locksmith business, does Google penalize you if you post the same content on your own domain over and over and over and over?
That's an interesting one. So there's this kind of thought that, oh, you get a manual, a penalty for duplicate content. And there isn't really a penalty for duplicate content. That doesn't exist. It just, Google doesn't like repeating itself. So it will suppress multiple results that are very similar, because it's not going to show you like 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, and 10th.
Yeah,
unless
you just won't see
really, really, really super specific search. So there's no such thing really as a duplicate content penalty. I mean, it's a bit of a waste of your time. It's certainly a waste of your crawl budget. And the problem with it is if somebody searches for something that applies to both pages, like if you've got one page that's Newcastle and one page that's Sunderland, but they're really, really similar, and somebody searches for something that's sort of not related to either, say they search for Gateshead, I'm really stretching my geographic knowledge there, but they're kind of cities that are all sort of near each other. But if Google can't decide which of these 2 pages is most relevant, it will rank neither, and it will rank your competitors instead. So if you overdo it and just like, blanket, like, right, I'm going to rinse, repeat these same pages and just change the city name 50 times, you're not doing yourself any favors. Make one really good page that say, oh, we covered the northeast of England and we're amazing. And we do deliver in Newcastle and Sunderland and Gateshead and whatever else. Make one really good one rather than 15 lousy ones. Okay,
yeah, well, definitely. I hope people do take that on board. And then just have one other question. It's basically, this can be also answered by Claire as well, but how do we best educate clients to move away from these rankings and writing rubbish content? Rubbish content is what you were talking about.
Yeah, it's hard because you get all these things like, people say like, all right, to rank, you've got to have a blog, and you've got to blog once a day, all the time, and you get people that then just like, they blog junk about what porridge they had that's because their SEO told them that they should blog. Like, you must blog daily, like churn out content, and it doesn't help. It is the kind of adage of quality over quantity. So blog when you've got something to say. Create local landing pages when you've got, you're actually in that local community and you've got, unique and interesting things to say about your local offering in that area. So a good example, I didn't actually bring it up in my presentation, but so I live in Cambridge. Really, really flat, and I cycle a lot. Like the biggest hill I go up is going up the curb. So all the national bike shops in Cambridge, they all talk about like town bikes and road bikes and racing bikes because it's flat. So the same chains, and they have their shops in somewhere like near the Pennines or in Oldham or whatever, they are selling the same bikes, but they kind of tilt it round and they talk more about mountain bikes, and or they sell the same products, but they're just angling it slightly differently. So if you know that you're selling those same products, you know that your customers in that area are mostly after this thing. So say you live like right near a hall of residence for students, and that's your kind of like your target market. You're not going to sell them like top of the range kind of Gucci, Prada kind of stuff. They probably want more kind of prime market, maybe, I don't know, it depends on your target market kind of thing. But think about your audience and like, elevate the thing. You might have the same 50 products, but on your local landing page for Cambridge, you might choose to push these 10 to the fore. And on your local landing page for, Carmarthen, you might push these 10 to the fore.
Okay, well, that's great.
I was laughing because I did a Wales joke. I got Wales in there, Claire.
Wales, okay. Well, we actually have for our next speaker, she is in Wales. So Andrew and Azeem are in England. I am in España. And then we have Claire in Wales. So 3 countries in one. Thank you very much, Andrew. We do have a couple of questions, but we can pass those over to Claire. So over to you, Claire.
You'll get a better answer anyway.
No. I like that geographic tour, Andrew. That was good. Just choosing cities and towns out of your head. I'll try and share my screen.
If not, I have your presentation.
I'm going to do the magic. It's going to work.
It will in a moment.
It will. Wow.
Yay! Okay, here we go.
Hooray! Shall I say it anyway? Can you see my screen?
Yes, we can.
So thank you very much. Thank you very much, Joe. And thank you for everyone that is here listening. So I'm Claire. Joe's already said this. So this is me. I like swimming in the sea, especially when it's very cold. And I like working with local businesses on their SEO and local SEO. And I've been doing both of those things for a very long time. And today I am going to talk to you about how to win at Google My Business using UTM tagging. So first things first, why would you want to add UTM parameters in Google My Business? So if you imagine the scenario, you need to demonstrate the excellent job that you're doing with GMB for a client or for your organization because you want a pay rise or because you want additional budget for resources. So we can use GMB insights to give us some data like driving directions or how many times people click to call, but that doesn't tell us how many people are clicking through to our websites from GMB and what those potential customers are doing once they're on our website. So that's why we use UTM tags. So if you think about what you can tag in Google My Business, there are actually lots of different opportunities to link back to your website from your GMB profile. So if we call these little red circles that I've highlighted here the primary links, what you'll have in your GMB listing will depend on your primary category, but it will include the website link, and then sometimes you have the appointment or the menu link. And then a lot of Google My Business listings, but not every single listing, will have the option of using Google posts that look like this. So if you're spending lots of time and effort and you're working on a content strategy for these and you're writing lovely content and getting images, then you want to be able to monitor the success of these posts in terms of click through back to your website and then what people do on your website when they get there. So you can answer questions like, do people sign up for a newsletter? Do they actually buy something? Do they do any of the things that you'd hope they do? And you can understand whether or not you're actually seeing any return on investment on your Google My Business posts. And then here in this picture, we have an example of Google products. So this is something that was in beta for a while, and now products has made an appearance in a lot of dashboards, in a lot of profiles, but people aren't necessarily using it. And some people might have it and don't even know that they've got it. So Google Products allows you to manually curate a collection of products in Google My Business. And when you see these in the business profile, they take up a lot of space and they can look really, really nice. And the best thing about them is they include a link back to your business website. So if you haven't already added them, then you definitely should. So some tips on UTM tagging. You really, really want to, before you add any, carefully plan out how you're going to do this, because you need to have a careful structure so you don't end up with balked and messy data. Because if your data gets messy, it's going to be very hard for you to show the value of what you're doing. And it's a real pain in the bum to clean it up retrospectively. So be consistent with your tagging, have it planned out so you can refer back to it every time you add a tag. So you need to decide on your naming conventions and you need to stick with them. And don't refer to your campaign as GMB-listing in one tag and then lose the dash and then add an underscore in the next, because they're all going to be reported on separately. And Google Analytics is case sensitive in all of its reports. So if you're using a lowercase tagged URL and then you use an uppercase tagged URL, again, these are going to be reported on separately. So keep everything lowercase. And then don't get your medium and your source in a muddle, because if you mix up these two fields, then Google Analytics is just going to chuck all that information into a channel grouping called other. So that's like a dumping ground for any sessions that that has a source or a medium that Google doesn't recognize. And that's the opposite of what we're trying to do. So we don't want anything to end up in that dastardly other bucket. So this is how I'm UTM tagging up my GMB links. So the campaign source is where the link lives. So I just add Google here because for me, it's just living on Google. But this isn't the only approach. And some people will add GMB here. But whatever you choose, just make sure that you keep it consistent. The medium for me is organic, and then campaign name, if you look at this column here, that is where the link lives in Google My Business. So I've just kept it quite simple here. GMB listing for the main website listing, a GMB appointment for the appointment, GMB menu for the menu. And then the next part here is where I start to get a little bit granular with Google My Business posts. And I give them a different name for each type of post. And the reason that I do that is because Google has got a pretty funky habit of moving Google posts in and out and up and down in the business profile and on Google Maps. So I just figured that if I know what type of post is referring the traffic, I can actually understand the impact of the changes that Google is making with regard to where Google posts sit in the business profile. And then again, going a little bit further with Google posts, using the campaign content field to describe the actual content then in that Google post. And so then we can see the relative success of one content type or one content theme against another. So you need to keep it consistent here in the use of lowercase, but keep it unique and descriptive. So the reason I use GMB in all of the campaign names is so I can quickly add a filter for GMB to see how much value that GMB and Google My Business is driving in Google Analytics. And so this is a snapshot of an attraction, and you can see the revenue that's being driven by GMB in total over a period of time. So, you know, as you'd expect, at the top there, you've got the GMB listing, which is driving the lion's share of the visits and revenue. But you've also got Google posts and Google products that are driving traffic and are actually driving revenue for that business. And then we need to remember that it's not always about revenue. Every single organization that you work with, it's, you know, they're not going to be e-commerce. So we need to think about micro conversions and other things that we can measure when it comes to Google My Business. So UTM tagging allows us to see that what our website visitors are doing when they come from GMB. So it might be things like Do they click through to a social media profile? Do they click to call, sign up for a newsletter? Do they fill in a contact form, submit a review, or anything else that's important to your business or organization? So, for this, you just need to make sure that your goals in Google Analytics are mapped out against your KPIs, so that you're measuring what's actually important to your organization. And then, we need to give credit to Google My Business where the credit is due, because it's likely that all of this lovely work that you put into your photos and your posts is going to assist in conversions that aren't going to be attributed to them via last click in Google Analytics. So, if you take the example of a user making a non-branded search for a plumber, so they click on your listing in the map pack, they are looking at your GMB content and they click on a link via GMB, but they don't book an appointment on that day. They remember your brand name, and then they Google you the next day. They get to your website via a Google ad, Azeem, but they don't end up booking the appointment. And then they do book the appointment. So that's got very muddled, but basically they've come via a Google ad, but they came the day before via GMB. So if you look in Google Analytics, it's going to be Google ads that gets all the credit for closing that deal. So if we think about GMB and how that how that drove that booking, we can use assisted conversions in Google Analytics. So we can see how the clicks from GMB featured in terms of the conversion path for that visitor. So you can find that in the conversion section in Google Analytics. It's in multi-channel funnels, assisted conversions, and then you just change the primary dimension to campaign. And then you can see how GMB has helped other channels to make those conversions. So I'll round it up because this is getting quite long, but I will come back to the idea of keeping it nice and tidy so the data isn't messy and we can actually demonstrate the value of everything that we're doing. So if you're inheriting sort of messy data, or if you've had to change your tagging structure, then you can use calculated fields in Data Studio to tidy it up. So in the left-hand image here, you can see there's a big variation in naming conventions in the GMB elements. So what we can do is, in the right-hand image, it shows us the case function in Data Studio, and what we're doing is bucketing those inconsistent names into campaign names that are consistent with what we're using. And then we can use Data Studio reports to really show the value of the work that we're doing in GMB. So a quick note on logistics and something from me to you. You might be building out your UTM parameters using something like Google's campaign URL builder, or you might be using something else. But you do need to be clean and consistent. So I've written this guide, which has got a Google sheet with it. And all you need to do is just pop in your website URL and it will auto-generate all of your tagged URLs for you. And if you keep all of your tagged URLs in one place, then you'll be able to see the history of all the Google posts that you've made and see which ones have worked the best for you. So the full post on UTM tagging is on my website here with lots of other resources. And then finally, thank you for listening. It's been nice to be here, and you can give me a follow, and any questions that you have got that I can't answer now, I'm at Claire Carlile on Twitter. Thank you.
That's so good. Thank you, Claire. I'm going to look at your UTM post again. We have some questions from the audience. So Merit asks, Claire, what is the most underused or underestimated feature of GMB that can make a big impact to companies first setting up their GMB listing?
UTM tagging. It depends on the business, really. I think that not a lot of people are using Google products if they're available to them. It depends on the niche, but increasingly people are using them. But get in now and make sure that you've got really nice, beautiful, especially if you're e-commerce or you're in terms of having a very small product collection of something that's beautifully made. I think that can look lovely, really, really nice. So using Google products, excellent photos. People just post awful photos. I think it's really, we're very visual people, and we need good photos. So investing in photos is a good idea.
Photos, okay, definitely, we'll do that. I just have a question now that there's quite a few people doing maybe remote working, and maybe some companies maybe have had to close their offline stores just they can't afford it, or maybe some offices have had to close, but they're still available. Obviously, they're still working. What can people do for that if they have like virtual addresses?
If they have virtual addresses, they shouldn't be using them unless they're a service area business. You need, if you're a bricks and mortar store,
Need it.
to qualify for a GMB profile, you need to either have a bricks and mortar store, or you need to be serving people at their home in a location. So if you're a strictly e-commerce business without a head office or a store, then you probably wouldn't qualify for a GMB listing.
Okay, what if you're gone from, yes, an office that you rented yourself, but now you're doing one of these shared offices, like a WeWork or maybe a virtual office? What about those?
I think it's a bit of a bone of contention in terms of co-working spaces, because you do need to have a dedicated space where you can make in-person contact with people. So the only people that I've seen sort of doing that are when they rent like an actual dedicated cubicle that is their full-time space. But generally, no, not if you're just in and out of a co-working space.
Okay, thank you. So we've got loads of comments. Thanks, Claire. Awesome. Love the GMB ROI tracking tips. Amazing talk. Andrew asks, why would a user or Google want to show your page instead of the actual moving companies? Is that to
Sorry,
Claire?
that was me responding to people in the chat. That wasn't a question.
Oh, okay, fine. Okay. Well, that was great. We had loads of insights from everyone today. We had Azeem, Andrew, and Claire. Thank you very much for giving your time and sharing your tips with us at Turn Digi. It's great to have that. We've had so many people that have joined, and we've also been lucky to have as well 12 speakers sign up to speak today, and all giving away their time to share with all of us. So we had Azeem, Andrew, and Claire. You can find them on Twitter and LinkedIn. And will you guys be sharing your slides later? I think, Andrew, you did recently, just now, didn't you?
No, I didn't, but I'm going to put them on my Twitter thing and stuff. So.
Oh, maybe I misread it then. I can't multitask. I was looking at Twitter.
Me neither.
But tune in at 2 p.m. So just a quick little break, and we will have Areej, Simon, and Mara, who have been in the chat as well today. Thank you very much. And they'll be sharing their insights around getting tech SEO implemented, basically what you can do with the Wix, and also topic clusters, the why and how. So not focusing on those exact match keywords. So thank you very much, everyone, for joining, and we will be back in half an hour and for some more insights. Thank you very much. This is SEO Job Log signing out for now. Back in half an hour.